Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Game Time here with Nate Brown, a weekly rundown of high school football in Rapid City. And our guest this week, Rapid City Central Cobbler head coach Trent Pikula in his sixth season. And the Cobblers come into this Friday's game against Spearfish 1-1 after falling to the number one ranked Washington Warriors. Then they bounce back in a big way and pound Sturgis 49-6 in the Rushmore Bowl. Coach, it was a tale of two different weeks, and you got this season going with number one ranked team in Double-A. We all know Washington was going to be very good. And then you guys come back and you bounce back against Sturgis, as many people expected. How was that going from, we all know how Washington is, and Sturgis is young, they're growing a little bit, but it's probably nice to get a win under your belt.
It was. We told our kids all week long that we have to approach the Sturgis game like we approached the Washington game. And, the intensity level has to be, as high as we possibly can, because you have to, you play an opponent where you, like you said, going from number one, and take nothing away from Sturgis, but they're just not where Washington is, and so you got to keep that focus, keep that intensity level up, so you don't fall into that situation where you're playing down and your emotion is low and you're just not getting things done. And I thought our boys responded pretty well.
Rapid City Central, you take on a Washington team, and your junior running back Blake Stone said, "We were disappointed with the way we played against Washington. You got down 43-0 at the half. Were you disappointed in that effort?" And a lot of people felt, even though Washington's darn good, you guys maybe started off a little slow.
We did, and you could tell right off the bat that we, Washington returned 14 starters, we returned 7, and that was the biggest difference, because the experience level on the field. You get those kids that are out there for the first varsity football game, and it's a little bit of shock, especially when you're playing a team like that who is big and fast and athletic and physical. And so we did. We were deer in the headlights type of thing, and we got down 14-0 in the first quarter. And it was just, it was tough to get them back up after that, because they knew that, Washington was just going to keep coming. And offensively, we couldn't sustain a drive, and picked up a few first downs here and there, but nothing that was going to keep us in rhythm and keep our defense off the field. And so it was frustrating, and that fact, it was never an effort thing. Our kids played their tails off. After the game, it wasn't like I said, we didn't play hard. But in order to beat a team like that, you better play perfect, and we definitely didn't.
I know you guys have some size, and you like some of your size. You felt up front that you've been able to match up last year sometimes in games like against Washington. This year, where are you at? Even though you didn't play your best game against Washington, do you like where you're at as far as matchups physically against some of these teams?
I think so. And again, it's because it's the Washington versus the Sturgis. There's such a big discrepancy between the two programs. Against Washington, their linemen are big and fast and athletic and quick, and against Sturgis, it was a much different look for us. And so, but the goal was get off the ball, regardless of who you're playing against. Come off, fire off, get low in your stance. We double team a lot. Complete your double teams up front. Defensively, we got Aaron Beard's in the middle, and he's 320, and there's not very many guys that can block Aaron, and they don't try to block him. I mean, even on film against Washington, he was in the backfield a good part of the night. They just ran away from him. But you take that away from Aaron, and we got some kids that are undersized. Jaron Jensen's just a 215-pounder, and Mitch Newhouse is a basketball player. He's 6'5", but he's only 200 pounds. And so we've got to be able to use our quickness. And Washington negated that. Against Sturgis, we were able to do that. So, it was a much different outcome. 576 total yards you racked up against Sturgis, and you have to be happy with the ground game. Obviously, that was the big thing that got it done against Sturgis. It was, and, we want to have a balance. In the past, we've either been one way or the other. With the backs that we have, we ran between Blake Stone, he had 194, Ben Dingus had 101, and then we had about 3 or 4 kids who were in the 30s and 40s, and so we got a lot of guys some reps and a lot of guys carries, and we really worked on the things that we needed to work on. Blake's a really instinctive runner. He sees things so well. He's not the fastest kid on the field by any means, and he's not the biggest at 160 pounds, but his vision is probably as good as a back that I've seen in a long time. And then with Ben, he's just a bull. He's gonna try to run people over, and that's kind of what he did. So we ran the ball extremely well. Our offensive line got off the ball well.
What's interesting about the first 2 weeks is you were down 4-3-0 at the half against Washington. You were up 43-0 against Sturgis. So 2 different weeks, as we talked about. But I do want to discuss your quarterback situation, because you have some backs. Your son is one of those skill guys. You run him a little bit, you throw it to him a little bit, all-around talented player. You mentioned Dingus and Stone. But quarterbacks, you played a couple of different guys. How's that going as far as who's kind of taking the lead role there? Do you know yet?
Well, when I told the kid, it's Donnie Pilato's a sophomore, Christian Beckler's a junior, and we went to camp this summer. I said we're going to rotate series. I told him through the first game and the second game we would rotate series, and I think we're probably closer to making a decision. We have to meet as a staff, and we just make, based off of, gameplay is the biggest thing. They can do anything they want in practice because you're going to get the scout team, but you get them up in those game situations. Donnie's been throwing the ball well. Christian's got the junior leaderships, which I like. He's extremely smart, but he's been banged up. He got a high ankle sprain against Washington, which has really been holding him back a little bit. So, I still don't know if we're exactly where we want to be as far as quarterbacks goes. You still will probably see both of them in the game. It may not be the same as it has been in the past, but I think, each one of them brings a certain thing to the table, and at this point, we're going to sit down with it, or I'm going to sit down with both of them this week, and we're going to come up with a plan for this weekend.
Is it hard to rotate the quarterbacks? I mean, as a coach, and then those two kids, they know, well, I'm going to be in for a certain amount of time, then out. Is it hard to get a rhythm going a little bit?
It is to a certain extent, but because we give them the same amount of reps in practice, the kids are used to them. We try to keep the snap count as much as the same as we can, and so, the kids have seen it. They've been with each kid in the huddle, and so I don't think it's necessarily hurting us in that aspect. Excuse me, but and eventually we'll have a starter, and whoever that may be, they're the person that we're going to go with and be happy with, and when that decision is made, both kids will have to live with their role.
We talk a lot about offense in this early going. I want to talk to you about your defensive capabilities. Obviously, against Washington, there were some holes. In Sturgis, you played a pretty all-around solid game, but where are you looking at defensively where we just have to get a little better?
Secondary is kind of the area. We're starting 4 rookie starters out there, and it's not a matter of they're not good enough, because they are. It's just a matter of understanding situations, and am I in cover 2, am I in cover 3, and what's my responsibility on this particular play, and if this guy's blitzing, what do I have? And so it's just a matter of repetition and practice, and you get those into that game speed. Even against Sturgis, the 3rd or 4th play of the game, we're sitting in cover 2, and our safety jumps the inside route, which leaves a guy open up the sideline, which is just a rookie mistake. And stuff like that happens. We just hope that we can learn from that. We watch film, we go over Skelly in practice, and we rep that stuff. And so hopefully those kids get a better understanding. But together, the 4 kids have just got to get better as a unit in the secondary.
Rapid City Central 1-1, and they take on the Spearfish Spartans. This game was a defensive juggernaut, defensive battle last year, 14-6 the final. Central beats Spearfish. Spearfish has a lot of starters back this year. It's Friday night. We'll talk about it when we come back on Game Time with head coach of the Cobblers, Trent Pikula.
You're watching Black Hills Television, Channel 18.
Have you ever found that sometimes you just can't reach where you need to go? Via Media offers affordable local television advertising on major cable networks to local, regional, and national businesses. Let Via Media extend your advertising reach. At Via Media, we make sure your advertising reaches your target. Via Media, more of the big picture.
As a parent, you're always sharing your money with your kids, and they're now 24 and 18, and I'm still doing it.
We'd earn 10 cents, 5 cents, that all add up to be a couple dollars, each week. And my dad would say, okay, now here's how you got to spend that. You got to save 10, you got to give 10, and the rest you can spend.
So my mom used to offer me 5 cents for every weed that I would pull from the yard. I definitely did not earn very much money.
Welcome back into Game Time. Rapid City Central head football coach Trent Pikula joining us as we weekly run down the high school football scene here in Rapid City. The Cobblers lost to Washington, the number 1 ranked team in AA, and Washington stayed there at number 1. Then Central comes back in the Rushmore Bowl in its 20th year and beats Sturgis 49-6. And now you go and play a Spearfish team that you're very familiar with. You guys have played for a long time, but it's a little different now, at least as far as classification. The Spartans are 11A, you're 11AA. Their enrollment's gone down a little bit and things have been shifted around, but last year it sure didn't seem like A against AA. It seemed like the Spearfish team had improved. They got a little new sense of confidence. Last year was a tight game. What did you learn about these guys last year in that one?
Well, last year was strange. We come out, we score twice in the first 5 minutes of the game, and then just shut down offensively. And we figured they would pound Rodert at us all game long, and he ran the ball probably less than 10 times, and they tried to throw the ball against us. And they scored their touchdown with inside of 2 minutes to go in the game. But it was just one of those. It was frustrating for both teams because nobody could find a sense of offense where we'd get a couple first downs and then just stall. And so, Spearfish is always going to be a team that they're going to bring it to you. They're gonna hit you both offensively and defensively. They're big. Rodert's a big 220-pounder. Their fullback, the other kid's a 220-pounder. They're physical, and they always have been. Go back to when they were winning their state championships. Those teams were good and had some real physical players. So, you see a lot of the same thing there. They had a tough one first week against St. Thomas More, and then they bounced back last week, beating Stevens in a game where they pretty much controlled from kickoff to the end of the game. And so they're kind of in the same boat we are, that you don't really know exactly where you're at because you play two really different types of opponents. And so I think for both teams this week, you're going to see both teams trying to find exactly what their identity is. Are we going to be able to throw the ball? Are we going to be able to run the ball? Defensively, where are we at? And so I think it's going to be a real filling out process between the two.
The Spearfish team has Nate Rodert at running back, an all-state player, and he's been a great player, and they rack up 326 yards of rushing against Stevens. But as you said, their quarterback, Brandon Kemp, can throw it, gets outside of the pocket a little bit. It seems like they're definitely a dual threat, so you don't really know what to expect. What are they going to do?
It is, and when they'll run a little bit of option. They run a lot of bootleg stuff, getting Kemp out on the corner. The Kuipers kid, they put him out at wide out, and he runs pretty well. So, it's just they truly are a dual threat team, and it's just a matter of us staying home, doing your responsibilities. I always tell the kids, don't be a hero, do your job. If you do your job, we're fine. But a lot of times with high school football, you see kids, they don't trust each other. So I see this happening, but I don't trust that I'm gonna, get the help from my teammate. And so we just got to trust each other, and the strength of our defense is up front, and so we're going to hope that we're going to, hopefully slow down Nate a little bit and make them go to their passing game, and hopefully our DBs, like we said, improve a little bit in that area.
I talk about the different classes. Does that enter the mind at all with Cobbler fans, with you as a coaching staff, as Rapid City Central, now that Spearfish is in 11A? You obviously don't want to lose to Spearfish, your rival over the years, but now it's one of those things that when AA plays A, when A plays B, it kind of gets thrown out around a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, we don't talk about it at practice because I don't need the kids thinking about that. But I mean, as a coach, there's a certain prestige with the AA football. I coached at the A level for a long time, and thought we had some really good football teams there down in Hot Springs and Belfouche. But it's just a different type of football at the 11 AA level, especially when you're going against the Washingtons of the world. And not to say that there's not great teams in the A's and the B's, because they are. I mean, if you watch a Tri-Valley team or a West Central, a Del Rapids, those kids can play with pretty much anybody. But for us, we want to go out and we want to just go out and prove more to anybody, more to ourselves, that we're a good football team, and whether it's against Spearfish or it's against Sturgis or Lincoln next weekend, we just got to go out and play good Cobbler football, and hopefully at the end of the game we're ahead on the scoreboard.
The difference I've seen in Spearfish is they have some of their skill guys back, and we talked about them up front. They're not as experienced. When you look at Spearfish from last year to this year, you think they're better? Where do you see possible things that you might be able to expose?
Well, and again, that's tough. I mean, you look. We have the Stevens film, and we watched a little bit of that game prior to our game, and they pushed Stevens around pretty good. Nate was able to, inside, outside, they just kind of had their way with them. So, but Stevens is a young football team, and so you kind of think, is Spearfish that good, or was Stevens just the inexperience really holding them back? And so, the skill kids are definitely better. They all got another year under their belt, and so those kids are just going to bring up that. They bring up those kids around them. Offensive line-wise, you look at them, Stevens, especially as the game went on, Stevens was able to do some things through the blitz that kind of threw Spearfish off guard. And so we look at those things, and hopefully we'll learn from them. And in our game plan, we're going to have to do some of those things to try to throw them off a bit.
You guys have been running it and attacking it. Spearfish, I look at their defensive capabilities as well. Probably two of the best linebackers, I think, and the Dykert kid is 220, Rodert is 222. They really rely on those guys, and they fly around quite a bit in the linebacking spot.
They do, and again, the middle of their defense is going to be the heart of their defense, and we have some pretty good team speed. We mentioned Asher a little bit ago. If we can get Asher the ball in the jet sweeps and get him the ball in space, and then we bring Stone and Dingus back inside. You know, we have to be able to do those things and find kids. You know, we basically have to do what the defense wants us to do. If they're going to line up and take away that inside game, we've got to be able to get the ball to the corner, get it out to those kids in space, and let them run. But yeah, they're physical up front. You know that if you get through the first wall, you're going to see those two guys sitting there, and so you know, misdirection, trying to get to the outside. Those are all things that you have to do as an offense to try to take them out of that.
Trent Pikula, head coach of the Cobblers, joining us on Game Time. For those of you that don't know, his son was a great baseball player. Has been a great football player for you, and you use him in a lot of different ways. Try to get him the ball in a lot of different ways, at slot, at running back, on sweeps. He's in the kickoff return game. He had a big return in the game that got called back due to a penalty. So, and he's your son, so I ask you, harder to coach your son, harder to coach these other guys? You're trying to get everybody the ball.
Well, you know, we talk as a staff, and we have to get the ball to our, you know, it's feed the studs. You know, you got to get the ball to the kids who are going to go score your points. And Asher's got the ability. He's been, you know, given the gift of speed. He's small. He's, you know, every day I look at him, it looks like he's shrinking. But he's got the ability to run. And, you know, when you can run, you can do a lot of things. You know, and this week he had a 94-yard punt return, called back, you know, scored it, called back. He had a nice 60-yard run, called back. And so a little bit of frustration on his part, but we're still going to give him the ball in those situations. But it is hard. I mean, you know, he knows what I expect out of him, and the other kids do too. And there's times where the coaches have to say, you know, lay off. He's your son. But there's those situations where, you know, maybe things aren't going very well in practice, but you might take it out on your own son rather than go out, you know, to somebody else. And so I've really had to learn to step back. I've coached him since he was in 5th grade, and so it's been one of those processes where over the years I've become a lot more lenient because, you know, in the past it was if he messed up, he knew it.
Yeah.
But now we try to keep it on the field. It never goes home with us. I may say one thing at home, and he says to understand. And so we've kind of built that relationship where he knows what I want, and I know what he's trying to do. And so we work pretty well together.
By the way, all Rapid City coaches have sons playing. Wayne Sullivan has Jake Sullivan at quarterback. You have Asher, and Coach Ferdinand has Jake Ferdinand as well. So that's an interesting
little... Check has his boy out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of Douglas. It's a little interesting side note to this whole deal. Yeah. Before I let you run, as we get ready for Spearfish Central on Friday, talk about this 11 AAA that's going to go into effect a little bit. It's going to happen in 2013 to where really not a lot's going to change for you. You're just going to seem like you're going to play against the least amount of teams when it comes to a playoff format. It's going to go down to 8. Not as many teams from the 16 AA ranks now. What's that going to be like? As I said, it's not going to change much, but sure seems like a champion out of 8 teams. A lot of coaches have said, yeah, I don't know if that's watering it down or what.
I struggle with that, and I understand South Dakota is a strange state in that we have such a big variance in our attendance. But, you know, for me, I want as many teams in the class, you know, and there was a time where the Yanktons of the world and the Aberdeens were in Watertown especially, were competing. But now, when the Sioux Falls schools have done what they've done, it's really not the big schools against everybody else. It's Sioux Falls against everybody else. But, you know, for us, we're going to play the same exact teams we've played in the past. And so for us, it doesn't change that. But like you said, the 8-team playoff format and only getting to play 8 games versus 9, that's, you know, I don't know if I like that because I like to have that extra game. It's just more experience for the kids. But, you know, it's one of those things, and in athletics, you roll with the punches and you take what they give you, and we're going to go out and we're going to do our best to put the best team on the field. And, you know, if we get the opportunity, and which is what we're all looking for at the end of the road, to play for a state championship, I could care less if there's 40 teams or 5 teams. If we're in that game, I'm going to be a pretty happy coach.
Well, I think a lot of teams are saying that, hey, when you win a state championship, it's still going to be a championship, especially looking at the teams that you're going to have to go through. It's not like the teams are worse. There's just less of the amount, and they're really good. As we get ready for Spearfish Central Friday, a reminder you can listen to the ball game on 95.9, 96.3 Eagle Country, all the live play-by-play starting at 6:40, and Central head coach Trent Pikula gets set to take on Spearfish. Coach, good to get you on the show. Thanks.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks for watching Game Time. We're back next week right here on Knology Black Hills TV.
You're watching Black Hills Television, Channel 18.